I'm Vaida. I'll be traveling with you now. I am loyal to one master only, the one who sits on the throne of Burn.
Last month Intelligent Systems remembered Lance Flyers exist, and so they decided to give us another heroic route Grand Hero battle option. Vaida is a cool Wyvern lord, and if you know about Zeiss from last month, then Vaida is basically going to do the same things, just with a unique weapon. We had a bit of a drought when it came to Lance Flyers. Arian was the only Gen 8 option, Zeiss and Vaida are Gen 9. These three are pretty similar, and Vaida is a bit like Arian with some of her weapon effects. Now for stats, Vaida has 40 HP, 47 attack, 37 speed, 47 defense, and 23 res. She has a defense super boon. Vaida has excellent attack and defense, and she'll put the rest of her points into speed instead of resistance. Wyvern riders typically aren't the best against magic, but Vaida can try to fight off some mages. This is because Vaida has the spear. It ain't sacred, but just like in the mainline games, this weapon can retaliate from range. I do wonder if Faye would ever give us melee units with range initiations. I mean, Roy sort of does this in Engage, so I don't think it's an impossible outcome. Now, until that happens though, Vaida's spear is just going to be regular old distant counter. It also grants +3 flat attack. Every turn, if above 25% HP, Vaida grants +6 attack and defense, Iote shield, and the low buff neutralization status to herself and allies within the 2 spaces. At start of combat, if above 25% HP, she gets bonus stats equal to 5 plus the number of foes within 3 rows or 3 columns, times 3. If 3 enemies are in range, Vaida can get +14 to all stats. Additionally, Spear grants true damage and flat damage reduction equal to 10% of Vaida's attack. Vaida is going to be a fun unit to build simply because of distant counter. She's not going to be like the new Hector or anything, but for regular PvE content, everyone likes DC to fight off all enemies. Importantly, Spear also grants Iote shield as a status, meaning Vaida's high defense can now fully tank archers. For other support effects, +6 attack and defense is fine, and the low status neutralizes the foe's field boss. We got all kinds of buffing and bonus doubling going on, so it's a very nice status to have around. In combat, Vaida can get a lot of stats. This weapon does get weaker the more enemies you defeat, but at minimum it's still +8 to all stats. Extra speed and res are appreciated too. Besides stats and DC, Spear also gives some true damage and flat DR. 10% attack scaling is not very high. If you hit 70 attack, that's only 7 true damage and flat DR. Certainly not a mind-blowing amount, but we'll take it. All in all, a distant counter weapon with +14 to all stats potentially ain't too bad. You can get +6 attack and defense higher, you got law to stop enemy field boss, and some true damage and flat DR are decent add-ons. While the Iote shield status is good, Vaida can lose it to anti-status effects. Being able to give it to multiple flyers though is a neat trade-off, especially for a free reward unit. For the rest of her base kit, Vaida has Dragon Fang. What else would the Draco Fang General have? She then brings Wyvern Flight 3. They keep throwing this thing out, and yet we still only have one Wyvern Rift source. Now, the tier 3 just inflicts -7 attack and defense, but you gotta do a flat speed check and then a defense comparison. Honestly, it's just not that amazing for all the hassle. Now, something fun Vaida introduces to the free-to-play pool is attack and defense Rain 3, -4 attack and defense debuffs on foes within 2 spaces. I believe this is the first Rain C-skill on a Demon or Grail unit. We've gotten a lot from Ephemeras, but it's just nice to see here. While there is attack and defense hold, sadly there is no attack and defense Rain Snap and no attack and defense Crux. Hopefully we get those variants one day. If you plan to merge Vaida, her neutral nature grants +1 HP, attack and speed, not too bad. If you go for the defense super boom, that's going to grant a full plus for defense. While the spear has attack scalings, 10% is just not worth chasing after, at least to an insane degree. 10 whole attack only equals 1 more true damage and flat DR. When it comes to free-to-play comparisons, we literally just discussed Zeiss less than a month ago. Vaida has nearly the same attack and speed, and where Zeiss has higher HP and res, Vaida just goes full defense like Arian or Spring Michaelis. Vaida's main competition is definitely Arian due to his unique Haired Gungnir. It also buffs the team with +6 attack and defense, and Arian grants charge to lead his team in for the attack. The catch is that Arian only buffs other flyers. Vaida gives +6 attack and defense and low to any unit type, and heck, she'll even give them Iote shield even though that's not going to do anything. This immediately makes Vaida a bit more valuable as a general team buffer. The team's Iote shield is also quite unique if you want a bulkier Flier Emblem team and you want to use distant counter. For example, Vaida and Glenn would be a fun duo. Their stat buffs and healing would work well together. Now, we actually haven't gotten a free-to-play Axe Flyer in quite a long time. Maybe we'll get one this year for a fun trio. Besides Zeiss, Arian, and Spring Michaelis, Trevant and Gall do have higher defense stats with some attack. They both got their refines. If you just want a pure attack and speed offensive Lance Flyer, it is just tough to beat Summer Mel Shez. excellent stats with a unique Brave Lance. I still use them quite a lot myself. Now on the demote side, no changes since last time. Zeiss and now Vaida are just the most modern high attack and defense options. Athena can compete with her higher HP, though she does have less speed. Other faster Lance Flyers won't have as much attack or defense. If you missed it, Sedit got a really good Refine this year. He went all in on support basically, and his Refine also grants a low buff neutralization effect. Sedit's low effect is an in-combat one, while Vaida's is a status. You could technically use them both honestly. For playstyle, having an innate distant counter weapon naturally means enemy phasing, at least partly. Vaida gets to tank archers like any other class type thanks to the Iote shield status. While Vaida can hit over 50 speed with just a spear, if you don't want to participate in any kind of speed race, you could just use quicker bows for a follow-up. Breaker skills can also be a nice option to get a player phase follow-up, although no follow-up will mess with these skills. Now if you want to use Wyvern Flight, it does a flat speed check first, and while you get a 10 speed advantage, that may not be enough against some foes. You can use Fury or a Squad Ace flat stat booster, but Fury has recoil damage and something like Life and Death will drop your defense and res. If you can get speed field buffs like from an OC skill, that can also help though. In general, some speed boosters aren't a terrible choice since the spear gives a decent amount itself, but it can definitely make it work for a budget setup. You can try to bump up her resistance, but you're gonna need more help for serious threats. Since she has a Rain C skill, you can stack that with a Rain Sacred Seal. Fly mobility skills can get Vaida or her team in position to use the debuffing zone. Since she does give 2 statuses, you can also use Attack and Defense Prime 3 since that's now an option. Clash or Catch will work fine though. For specials, I would run a 2 cooldown or 3 cooldown option. Since she has high defense, the higher scaling of Bonfire and Ignis will probably outdamage Dragon Fang or Draconic Aura. For premium skills, Flyers don't really have a ton of synergistic pairings for distant counter. Sure, Vaida has Iote Shield, but at that point, why not just use an infantry unit who can run Gust, Boulder, or Godlike Reflexes, and then Lagoo's Friend, or the many cooldown perks to counter with specials ready. Vaida's in a good spot for casual DC usage, but I wouldn't expect anything special unless you can give her some support. With that said, with her innate Wyvern Flight and her base stats, Wyvern Rift is a skill that can work for a mixed phase setup. No more flat speed checks, you do a speed plus defense check, and Spear gives stats to both. Vaida can get Omni Breaker, 7 true damage and flat DR, and she makes it tougher for the foes to naturally double. This all fits a distant counter unit, and works for player phase as well. You can use this with Breath of Life 4 for sustain, and a Tier 4 boost can offer guard plus extra HP. Some downsides is that Vaida doesn't add percent DR to her flat DR, and getting no quarter for DR piercing is going to be quite a challenge without slaying or cooldown support. Try to get those if you really want to help Vaida tank and spank. Now for non-Wyvern Rift skills, there is Guard Bearing 4, Gambit, and Potent. Guard Bearing can give 60% DR, but only once per enemy phase. It drops down to 30 after, which is what Potent gives. Potent would be nice for the extra attack, or just double with a still respectable 80% damage hit. As for Gambit, 50% damage reduction and 15 true damage is pretty good, but you need to run 5 cooldown Aether or Miracle. The lack of cooldown skills don't really help here, but it's still an okay option, plus Vaida can actually utilize the speed debuffs from that skill. Now when it comes to player phasing, Vaida has a lot more options, however her unique Spear may lose out on value compared to say Arcane Lewin or a new Arcane Lance. You can capitalize on the buffing part though. Obviously, Iote Shield is good for Flyers, but Air Orders 4 can add speed buffs, charge, and warping. We overlap on attack buffs, but the +6 defense and low status are a nice complement to all these effects. The buffing focus can also apply to Rain Snap, or guidance for infantry and armor movement. Crux can provide a follow-up with long range debuffs, although there is no attack and defense Crux yet. Another option is Oddspeed Wave 4. Vaida's not the fastest, but she would now buff 3 stats around her. She's going to hand out low, and potentially get no follow-up for herself. That's not too bad. For combative skills, Momentum is a powerful tool. Free follow-up attack, true damage, and instant cooldown. Sadly, Vaida cannot instantly proc no quarter even with 3 movement unless you give her more cooldown sources. A survivability option can be Flow Guard for scale. Nurture's Kanto can work well with warping skills, and Mastery in the A slot is another Kanto option. Clash or Excel will work nicely with the Spear, but Slice with Sparrow is actually a pretty good tool. Vaida can proc its true damage as well. Normally, Deadly Miasma and Endless Tempest are good C skills, but both neutralize the foe's field boss. The Spear already covers that effect. So, should you 5-star Vaida? 47 base attack and defense are excellent, and her speed is in line with other similar units. To stand out, her unique Spear has the always fun distant counter. No matter what kind of content you're doing, distant counter just lets you fight anyone with your favorite melee units. Even if she isn't the best magical tank, just having the option is good, and the Spear can give +14 to all stats. You then got Iote Shield to actually make a DC worth using. If you have a Flier team, Vaida can give multiple units Iote shield. That is a pretty rare ability. If you don't plan to use Vaida, she's the first to have a Rain Cisco as a free-to-play friendly unit. You can stack that with the Sacred Seals for a nice debuffing zone. In general, Vaida should be a fun merge project simply due to DC and giving out buffs to her team. Stat-wise, she is competitive with the most recent Wyvern riders, and poor Zeiss doesn't really differentiate himself that much to beat out a distant counter weapon. With that said, Flyers just don't have many crazy enemy-facing skills that synergize with DC. If you're gonna tank with a non-armor unit, infantry just have way more options. Now, the Spear isn't a standout for player phasing, but its buffing support and DC capabilities work fine for mixed phase setups. Vaida can help allies out with Flyer warping skills or plus for movement skills, and she can give buffs to all unit types, unlike Arian, who is just buffing Flyers. When it comes to heroic Grail projects, I struggle to imagine anyone's really beating Marnie this year in terms of strength. I'm sure the devs can prove me wrong. However, when you can help out the team, you have distant counter, and you have decent stats, I don't think you can really ask for much more out of a free reward unit. Vaida should be a fun unit to use, and hopefully we get more skills like Wyvern Rift to suit the Wyvern riding class type. I think her and Glenn would make a pretty solid duo in terms of free-to-play Flyers within the last year. Now that's all I got to say about Vaida. It's always a treat when the devs decide to give us a DC heroic Grail unit, and Vaida's pretty cool as a character. Let me know your thoughts and share your own build plans. Thank you for watching though, and I will see you in the next video.